そう帰ってきたぞ鋼の魂俺たちハートは一生サファイア燃やすぞ光の導火線クラッシュクラッシュクラッシュクラッシュ危険の意味なんてフラッシュ
Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern, and today we are doing another installment of Super Sentai Origins. And as always, I am joined by my illustrious co-host, Raptor. Raptor, how you doing, bud?
Doing wonderful. I've been participating in amiibo hunting for the last 2 weeks. Let me tell you, that's been crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Worse than hunting ranger keys.
I know, because you've got me involved with the amiibo hunting, too.
Oh, I'm gonna keep you involved once you're in Japan.
Yes, yes. Okay, so Raptor, what series are we doing today for our Super Sentai Origins?
Today, we are doing超新星 Flashman.
Flashman, yes. The series that I truly feel is the most 80s of all the 80s Sentai shows. I mean, if you watch this show, what they are wearing in the episode is like, that just screams of like Star Chaser or some crappy 80s science fiction movie. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, definitely. You found the words that I was trying to pin on it.
But it's in a good way. Even those headbands are actually pretty awesome, wouldn't you think?
The costumes, while dated, I thought were very well done.
Yes, yes.
Sufficiently alien, at least.
Yes. Now, let's inform everybody to what this episode is about, and let's go ahead and talk about the plot. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this show actually starts out with a little bit of exposition before we actually get into the story. So basically, according to the opening narration, in 1966, 5 children were taken from Earth and placed on planets orbiting Flash Star, which I'm going to go ahead and point out, it's called a star, but in the episode it's actually a planet, so it's a little odd right there. And 20 years later, these children have grown up into adults and have become the Flashmen in order to go ahead and protect Earth from the Restoration Mess Empire, which is a funny name.
You know, sometimes I have to wonder about the romanization of these Sentai villain teams, because sometimes you have to wonder if they were actually attempting a foreign word or if it was just some weird jumble of sounds that sounded cool in Japanese.
And actually, let me correct myself. The official name is Reconstructive Experiment Empire Mess. But I'm just going to call them the Mess Empire because that sounds better somehow.
Yeah, it's easier to say.
Yes. So the episode, we start out with, a flying saucer coming down to Earth, and we're introduced to our villains, which, I'm going to be honest, there are far too many villains, I think, here. We have 5 kind of foot soldier-esque leaders, kind of like your Goldars. We have the Emperor in this, and we have our main doctor, or second in command, I guess, Dr. Keflin. We have like 7 major villains right off the bat here, and I tell you, I really can't tell the difference between any of them, except for the fact that I think 3 of them are cat ladies.
All right, so I watching this, actually, I'm going to save this comment for when we get deeper into the villains. Let's continue with our synopsis.
Okay, so the Empire attacks Earth, but then we cut away to our heroes on the Flash planets, at this point referred to as the Flashmen. And basically, they're traveling between the planets, collecting everybody to go to the Flash Star, the main planet, the red planet, so that they can travel back to Earth and stop the Mess Empire. Now, at this point, I also want to point out that this show, just them going to the different planets, is really amazing. I love the miniature work that they've done and the design of these planets. I mean, they're each ranger colored, so like when they go to the Yellow Ranger's planet, it's got a yellow sky and yellow crystals and everything. It's not really well done by today's standards, but it really sets a really good atmosphere, I think, for where they are, and the jets just look awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not bad for 1980s low-budget tokusatsu. And you're right, it creates a lot of atmosphere and really sets the sci-fi tone of the series, much more other sci-fi series.
Raptor, you're cutting out there a little bit. Could you go ahead and repeat your point, please?
It sets up the sci-fi feeling more so than the other sci-fi series that dealt with aliens.
Absolutely, because we started out on an alien planet, we have the humans, we have our grounded characters, basically, and, I'm also going to say this, over the weekend I watched Top Gun and Twins, so I'm really kind of this 80s mindset, because there's really something about vehicles that were designed in the 80s, whether it be military or science fiction kind of stuff. There's just something great about that decade in science fiction and military hardware, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Considering this is the same decade that gave us the Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Absolutely. So, of course, as we continue through this, they load into this base that our Red Ranger Jin has been able to go ahead and find, and they travel back to Earth. While at the same time, and I love this scene in the episode, because every season's got to contrive some way to make monsters, and some are more creative than others. In Zoo Ranger Mighty Morphin, Finster sculpts them out. Clean Machine makes them real, which is pretty cool. In the Machine Empire, they just build them from scratch. But in this series, Dr. Keflin plays basically the electric harpsichord to make his monsters. I thought that was a little bizarre, don't you?
It is, but I also thought it was pretty visually interesting. So it was cool to me, and fun fact, that is a technique that would be repeated in Abba Ranger, in which some of the monsters are created
through playing music, basically.
They use the music to create the monsters.
Okay. Well, they basically use this to create a monster to make a white space elephant. That's basically what it looks like to me. They go and attack Earth. The Flashmen intervene, and they attack them and fight, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And
pretty large-scale fight for their first encounter, I'll add.
Yeah, and again, we'll go ahead and talk about that, but I also want to point out it's also anticlimactic in the sense that the villains retreat and then jump cut to them sometime later on the beach. And that's pretty much your first episode, folks. I know it sounds like not a lot happened, but surprisingly a lot of things did happen this episode. And Raptor, I'm going to go ahead and open up to you on what you want to talk about first in regards to this episode.
All right, I just have to say, after we watched Changeman last week, this was just so much more interesting of a show. This is a show that I would want to watch more of, because I want to learn more about these characters, what they experienced growing up on another planet, and I want to learn more about these villains. Out of all these Sentai series that we've watched so far, this is the one where I want to see more.
Now, a couple of things I'd like to point out to that. First, I do want to talk about our villains, because I'm a little confused as to their motives in this episode, and I'm sure the series will elaborate upon it, but as part of Sentai Origins, we just analyzed the first episode to see, what does the audience understand just from the first time that they watch it. And by the way, this episode aired March 1st, 1986, and fun fact for all you guys, I was less than 2 months old when this first premiered.
You're old.
Yeah, I'm old. Okay, so the villains. Here's what I don't particularly understand is that they're basically using different planets to run experiments so they can create what they call the ultimate reconstructive life form. So I'm trying to follow their logic here. They're going to go kill a bunch of people because they want to build a new life form. And even Dr. Keflin basically says that there is life all over this world. And in the very next scene, they're going to go kill it. Because that's the first thing the villains do. They come down to Earth and they start fighting civilians and start stabbing them, clawing them, and in 2 scenes, melting them, which is interesting to say the least. So I don't understand their motives in this very first episode.
I think I understood what it was. The killing things is to harvest them, to be used to use the great diversity of genetic material on Earth to create the ultimate life form.
I find it odd that they would do that because I kind of thought when we actually see the flying saucer come down, it actually starts scooping up parts of the Earth and everything. And that's what I kind of thought would happen is, they would start capturing people to run experiments on. Sort of like, and I hate to use this again, but like in Caretaker, when the Caretaker basically takes Voyager and the Maquis crew to experiment on them to see if they're genetically compatible. That's kind of what I was thinking would happen, but them going down, destroying buildings, attacking people, seems to be counter to what it is they should be doing.
I mean, you still have you still have DNA, even if you're dead.
Yeah, but I still don't get the foot soldiers, which the Zolars, had to admit, very cool design, very creepy. I mean, the ones in Changeman are creepy, but these are creepy in a much different way. But I have to admit, one of the things that really disturbed me about this episode was the fact that they throw silly string onto the people and end up melting them. And that's a little heavy, I think, for starting out a first episode, but it's effective.
Well, hey, just remember back in Go Ranger, people were getting shot.
True, but I would rather be shot than melted, but I don't know. Okay, so the other thing that you pointed out was the backstories to the characters. Now, one of the bigger criticisms I have about ToQger in my vlog series is that, we don't get to really know them as their characters before ToQger, that they don't have their memories, so we're kind of learning about them and everything, and they wanted to discover their past. And in Flashman, I would assume that the characters want to do the same thing. At the end, Lou, Pink Flash, basically says, now that we're back on Earth, we can start looking for our parents. And Jin, the Red Ranger, basically says, no, we're not going to do that. We're here to fight evil, and that's that. And that, to me, signifies that there's going to be some sort of conflict down the line between at least Lin and or Jin and Lou, about finding their parents, finding their backstory, and their main mission, which is to defeat the Mess Empire and protect Earth.
Okay, well, if you don't mind me dropping a spoiler here.
Okay.
When I was researching this on the Ranger Wiki, Yellow Flash actually does meet her father.
Yes, I saw that.
So the notion isn't dropped, at least.
It's just that in ToQger, thus far, I don't think it's been expanded upon very well, but I think in this episode you really set up the conflict and the two goals that they have and how part of the team is at least divided. And that's what I like. I like set up conflict and drama between our main heroes. Because it's always one thing when our heroes all get together to do something, but the fact that they're kind of split on a decision, I really like that.
Yeah, I actually get to have some conflict, and it was nice to get little pieces of characterization. I'm guessing that we'll get more characterization to our Rangers as the series goes on.
Yeah, in this series, I don't think we need to know too much about them as we start out, and I simply say that because there is a lot of plot as opposed to Changeman, because Changeman didn't have a lot of plot going on in the first episode, I think, but really lacked on the character development. But I think you can get away with it in this particular episode simply because it's very fantastic circumstances going on, a lot of visual stuff that's happening, which, by the way, speaking of visual things happening, I love how this actually has a War of the Worlds type of feeling to it. Did you notice did you notice the jets that were coming down were tripods?
Looked like tripods.
And they had the eyes on them too and everything, just like the originals. That somebody was watching War of the Worlds when they were designing this stuff.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was a cited influence.
Yes. Now, something else I want to talk about. I want to talk about the battle that they had because I find everything they did with the miniatures and the jets and the planets and the tank, everything like that was great. I love that part. But I do feel that the battle they had before they morphed and after they morphed was a little unimpressive. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, standard stuff. The Rangers knocking the villains around and
I think they really took an opportunity to use a lot of wire work in this, and I think they kind of went overboard with it. Not that it looks fake, it's just that it's a little too much. Yeah, they're jumping really high, we get it and everything, but it just wasn't as impressive as they will do in later seasons, I think.
Yeah, but, it's just you gotta figure that new technology out.
True, and even when they morphed, here's a couple things I like about when they morphed is I do like their weapons. I like how they summon the weapons. I like the look and feel of them, that they're basically just crystals that they're using. And the Green Ranger covers his hands in, like diamonds or whatever and can punch people. And the Pink Ranger covers her boots in this stuff. And it's really cool. I really like that look of it.
And then we get to see it in Power Rangers.
For no adequately explained reason. Also, what is with the rolling Vulcan? Why are their guns so big? I mean, I thought the Time Force weapons were huge, but damn, these things were big.
Alien technology. I don't know.
I don't know. It was just something that really stuck out to me as being very odd. Those are pretty big ones.
Maybe it's just going along with the 80s having huge guns.
Possibly so. Possibly. Raptor, what other points would you like to go ahead and make here?
That's pretty much it. It's something that I might possibly, but not likely, watch more of. But I'm more likely to want to watch more of it than, say, Changeman.
True. I mean, I think as far as first episodes go, this really hooks you in there. You kind of want to know more about these characters. You got this nice science fiction setting and everything. So it definitely does what's supposed to go ahead and do to get the viewer intrigued, to learn about what's happening there, and does set up. I mean, I guess it's sort of a mystery in itself in that they are children who are stolen away, they come back to Earth, and there is that potential for a quest to look for their families, which I'm sure pays off much better than Tokuger has so far. And I hate to put Tokuger down, but I think Flashman really sets up pretty well.
Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, that's all I have. I mean, again, it's a very exciting episode. A lot of cool things are happening right there. And, I would definitely start looking at this series. If the entire series was subbed, I would go ahead and take a look at it.
Oh, it's not entirely subbed, really?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't been able to find the entire series.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting to find out.
Although, if any of our viewers out there knows where we can find the entire series, please let us know, because even if I don't watch it immediately, I am going to watch it. I mean, for next week, I've actually downloaded all of Mask Man, so I have the entire series available to me, but we only need the first episode. And Raptor, that's where we're going to go ahead and end with. Next week, we got Mask Man, and I'm very interested in seeing this. A lot of people say this is the first fantasy series, I think, that actually goes to Zyuranger, but this one does have some fantasy elements into it, and we'll figure out what those are as we take a look at it.
Hey, I was going to give Changeman that title.
Well, powers from the Earth, maybe, but it's all science at the end of the day, maybe.
All right, yeah.
All right. Well, Raptor, I want to thank you for joining me again. Next week, we will go ahead and talk about Mask Man, and we're going to try and roll through these and start getting to the modern Sentais, because I'm sure a lot of you would like to know more about the Sentais that were adapted to the Power Rangers. So, Raptor, thank you again for joining me. Everyone.
Always a pleasure.
Yep, everyone, thank you for listening. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.